Hey, comic book nerds. Jake here from the Brave and the Boys. I know it has been almost a month, maybe even by the time this comes out, over a month since our last video, and I am sorry I have missed you guys, but I'm excited to be back in the studio with I say studio, but my office with Jordan filming, and today we have my last haul video. Now, the reason I'm doing one last haul video is because I have actually slowed down a lot buying physical books. I've opened up some new hobbies that I'll talk about in an upcoming video besides comic books, but I'm still reading and I'm still loving them. And I've gotten a lot of controversy online. Some people hate haul videos, some people love haul videos, but I just want to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to spread the love of comics, and I'm not trying to FOMO anyone into buying subpar books or trying to perpetrate a unhealthy spending habit for anybody. So from that, I just want to make more educational videos, talk about more about books I love, and make my wife happy and haul a little bit less. So one last time, let's dig into this haul.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom.
So up first, we have the non-DC section. I know in previous haul videos, I've had more granular subsections, but this haul's a lot smaller than my previous ones. But up first, we have to give a big shout out to one of the best comics I've read this year. That is this guy right here. Is it in focus, Jordan? Can they see it? See, the reason I'm doing this is so that way the book doesn't fall down halfway through the shot. But yes, we are going to give a shout out to Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer. Now, I have both the trade paperback, and a dear friend of the channel and friend of the Discord sent me this as well as some other stuff. This is like my first graded comic, which is really cool. I kind of feel bad though, because my first thought was like, because I hadn't had the trade paperback yet, I was like, can I bust it open and read it? And I was like, no, I got to keep it sealed. So this book was awesome. It was kinetic. It was all the things you love about Daniel Warren Johnson. So there was wrestling moves and, personal loss and family dynamics and everything that Daniel Warren Johnson does so well. And I really enjoyed it. I've never read a Transformer comic before. My only familiarity with Transformers is I had one Optimus Prime toy robot as a kid, and then the Michael Bay films, and I've heard the Michael Bay films were not very good. So for all of those people who've been reading Transformers for a long time, let me know in the comments down below, how does this compare to what you've read before? Because for me, I loved it. Now, moving on to the shirt that I'm wearing, we have Stan Sakai's magnum opus, Usagi Yojimbo. Now, I'm sure you all remember that one time I said, all I need is the special edition, the two hardcovers, and I said, that's enough Usagi for me, and then I bought the rest of the Usagi collection. So this was the compendium I'm missing. There might be a volume 9 that still has to come out. This was Legends. So Legends, I think, are more side stories and one-off stories, but I still have about 8 compendiums to go. And the thing I love about this is me committing to my guns. I bought the first deluxe hard edition. I bought the first volume of Usagi in hardcover, which was signed by Stan Sakai, and then found out it was going to cost me thousands of dollars to get the rest. So compendium saved money. In fact, I'm making money. That's comic book math. Now, moving on from that is a book we recently did an overview with my wife, my better half. You can watch that video here. That is the volume 2 limited edition, slipcase deluxe edition, however many editions you want to call it, of Something is Killing the Children. Now, I loved the first volume of Something is Killing the Children. It was on my list of, I called it top 10 indie comics and got chewed out in the comics. So maybe we'll call it top 10 creator-owned comics. You can watch that video here. And I loved it. And volume 2 kept the stakes high. They put Erica Slaughter on her own and really lived up to its name. They killed some children. So that's what you love that book for. What I love about that book, it is my wife's favorite comic book. So it was really fun for her to get excited about a new edition. This was sent to us by our sponsors, Organic Price Books. Remember, if you're buying 4 or more books, you can save 5% with the code Braveboyssit. Or if you're just, buying 1 to 3 books, you can save $2 with the code BraveBoys. But much love to them. I also got this next book from them. This is my first gallery edition, which is fun. I've always been a huge fan of Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's DC work. I want to get more in their Marvel work. I just want that omnibus to come back into print. But this is Hulk Gray. Now, if you were to ask me of all the Marvel color editions, which one would I most want to get? probably Daredevil yellow, or I think it's Spider-Man blue. Hulk gray was like the lowest on my tier of wanting it, but I was bored one time. My wife was out at a friend's house, and David was doing an OPB stream on Whatnot, and this book was going for like super cheap, so I put a bid in as a joke, and I won. So shouts out to David from OPB. He always hooks it up. Now, the next book is very exciting because it finished a run. This is volume 6 of the library edition of Madman by Michael Allred, who you know we love. Now I'm gonna pull up my phone for 1 second. This volume 6 collects story. I don't think it's so much Madman stories, because what's cool about these Madman collector editions is it doesn't just collect his Madman work, it collects everything creator owned that he's done. And he even had his wife painstakingly recolor his old creator-owned stuff to make it look modern and to fit in this definitive collection. So let me tell you what this collects, because it is some funky names, and I think you're all going to laugh at how I butcher them. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my phone and tell you what Volume 6 collects. Volume 6 collects this rare and in-color early work such as Graphic Music 1 through 4, Graphic Music 1 through 3, the cult hit comics Madman in Your Face 3D special, and Mr. Gum, Who Sell Out? You Sell Out? I can't wait to read all of these, as well as Allred's latest creator-owned X-Ray Robot. Now, I do have some friends of the channel who have read X-Ray Robot, and they loved it, and I'm excited. But again, I think I'm on like volume 3 of the library editions. It's a lot of really amazing art, like nothing you've ever seen before, but I do like to space out the Madmans, because again, it's a marathon, not a race. Now, this last book was also sent to me by a friend of the channel and a friend of the Discords, the same guy who sent me this awesome comic right here, and it is Scumbag. So, Scumbag is another Rick Remender book. This one's supposed to be about a loudmouth, profane biker. You know, I've heard, I don't know much about it. Maybe a Sons of Anarchy vibe. Again, I haven't dug into it. I kind of went a little too crazy on a Rick Remender binge and bought too many Rick Remender books, so I will have to get to this one. Up next is the DC section. Now, I know some of these books are going to be a little bit older, and that's because I stopped pumping out a haul a month, much to my wife's happiness and the happiness of our marriage. But up first, you're going to see one of my favorite runs. That is The Flash Rebirth by Joshua Williamson. Now, this was my first time ever reading a Flash week to week. This was my first time reading Joshua Williamson, and now he's like heading up DC and heading up that All In initiative with Scott Snyder. But this is awesome. It's an amazing Flash run. It's actually my vote, which I know is controversial because everyone loves Wally West, but you know, I haven't read, because you know, Mark Waid's not finished yet. I haven't read a bunch of Flash, but this is my go-to for the Flash. Now, if you want to watch my go-to for every member of the Justice League, you can watch that video here. But this run is awesome. I love the first arc where there's this Speed Force storm, and it gives a bunch of people speedster powers, so I really like that. Moving on from that, we have a book that I've heard mixed things about, but I'm still going to give it a shot. It is the Batman and Robin Adventures. This is a sequel to the Batman Adventures, which is the tie-in comic based on Batman the Animated Series, which I absolutely love, and is in my list of 10 definitive Batman comics. I've heard this is a kind of mix and not as good, but I love Batman and Robin together, so I'm excited to dive in. And if it even remotely makes me feel like I'm inside the animated series cartoon, I'm going to be happy. Now, next up, we have DC versus Vampires. This was sent to me by, again, a friend of the channel and a member of the Discord. In this, I guess the DC universe pairs off against vampires. So I'm going to use these books because my wife only reads horror comics. She doesn't like superhero comics. So I'm going to try to sneak it in and tell her, this is a really awesome horror comic because it has vampires in it, and see if I can trick her into reading DC. It's probably not going to work, but I am excited to dive in. Next up is a book that I was told about when I was on the recent episode of the Biff Bam Pow podcast by Gianni, a friend of the channel and member of the Discord. It is Superman by Kurt Busiek, #1. So he told me it's one of his most hyped up books of the year. So I was like, wow, should I get it? But you know what? I dove in digitally and tore through what makes up this whole book, and has some of my favorite Superman stuff I've ever read, and it's amazing. So this is going to collect the Up, Up, and Away, which was, I think it took took place a year after Infinite Crisis, where Clark didn't have powers, and you get to see him trying to be a hero and riding the train a lot. There's an awesome moment where Lex Luthor punches him and says, "I knew you always had a glass jaw." It's also going to contain Superman's Secret Identity, which was a Superman book that I can't believe you guys didn't force me to read earlier. It was so good, I ended it in tears, and I feel like I'm going to read that book a lot, and now I need to get the deluxe edition. I know I'm trying to double dip less, but that book is amazing and deserves it. Moving on from that is a book that I feel kind of twisted on. This is the Nightwing Compendium by Chuck Dixon, and I gotta be honest, I'm not crazy about the art. Sometimes it's very stylized and very 90s, and they look kind of like caricatures, and I'm trying to get into it because I love Nightwing, and I want to buy it because I want more Nightwing Omnis. He's my favorite comic book character, but I just haven't felt super gripped. And maybe I'm spoiled by the Tom Taylor stuff. Maybe it's just so good, nothing can compare. And maybe I should appreciate this because this is what we had before Tom Taylor. So, I'm trying to get into it, but I haven't been completely sold yet. Now we have the 4 DC compact editions. If you want to see me break down who the compact editions are for, you can watch that video here. But so far they've released the Court of Owls, Watchmen, Far Sector, and All-Star Superman. Now, that means we have All-Star in a compact edition, a trade paperback, a deluxe, and an absolute. If you want to see a comparison video of All-Star, let me know in the comments down below. Court of Owls, I own in too many formats. Watchmen, we've done every format of Watchmen ever, so we own that. But Far Sector, that is my first time buying it, and I've heard amazing things. If it is in the pantheon up there with Court of Owls, Watchmen, and All-Star, it's in really good company and must be an amazing book, and I'm excited to check it out. And it's crazy. My first time reading it will be in a compact edition. Now, I am getting a little flack by a friend of the channel who is saying every time Jake double dips in a book, especially when it's in a worse format, I get mad. He said, I'm telling Jim Lee that we need less hardcovers, but you know what? Comics should be accessible. So if getting these means more people read comics, then I'm doing my civic duty. And last, but certainly not least, we have a book I'm currently reading about halfway through. That is Gail Simone's amazing Secret Six. Now, all I had read from this before was the stuff in the Infinite Crisis Omnibus, Villains United, so it does double dip the first section right there, but oh my god, this is like a spiritual sequel to the early Suicide Squad stuff, and I feel like it's even maybe a little bit better. You have Catman, who's basically a stand-in for Batman. You have Ragman Jr. He doesn't have actual Ragman powers, but he's addicted to surgeries that make him have Ragman stuff. You have Floyd Lawton. You have amazing Hatman stuff. I've never felt bad for Hatman, but when he finally makes a friend and then something happens to him, I actually wanted to cry for Hatman. It's an amazing comic. It's so fun. It's not like a Suicide Squad ripoff. It's a Suicide Squad spiritual sequel, and I can't believe I didn't read it sooner. One of the best moments of the year was when Jordan and I got to meet Gail Simone at WonderCon, and she sees us walking up with a cart with wheels, and she has this like upset look on her face because she thinks we're some collector junkies that have like 60 individual issues that we want her to sign, and we sheepishly pulled out 3 Omnis, and her face just lit up, and she said, "Oh my god, I never get to see these," and she said, "Have you seen Secret Six? It's gonna be amazing." And Gail, you were right, it's amazing. Now, let's jump into the Absolute section. Now, this is my favorite part of the video because this is my final Absolute haul. Now, I'm saying this because I got every whale that is not currently being solicited for a reprint. That means all I have to do is sit back, and when a new Absolute comes out that's either new, like Batman and Son comes out this week, or something gets reprinted like Arkham Asylum, or finally Transmetropolitan Volume 3, I get to just sit back, and once Transmetropolitan Volume 3 comes out, I will have every single Absolute, and that's been my overarching collector goal since I first started collecting. So this is the final Absolute haul. So up first, we have Absolute Scarlet. Now, this is interesting because it's not Vertigo. It's not Vertigo. It's not Wildstorm. It is in a Brian Michael Bendis imprint called Jinx. And it's about a girl who rebels against an unjust, corrupt society. I don't know a ton about it. It hasn't been super high on my to read pile, but I got an amazing deal on eBay, and I'm so happy that I have it because, this wasn't super hard to get, but it was starting to get a little bit harder. Next up, we have Absolute Luthor and Absolute Joker. This was sent to me by Organic Price Books. Thank you for always taking care of me. I gotta say, Luthor, I loved. It made me want a whole Citizen Kane-esque movie done in the style of Joker, but with Luthor. I thought that he was so cool because his perspective on Superman, how he sees Superman as an abomination, is so interesting. And Absolute Joker, I couldn't stand. I never wanted to read again, and it was not a book I recommend. Moving on from that, another book given to me by a dear friend of the channel was Absolute Ronin. Now, this is one of the hardest to get absolutes, and it's Frank Miller writing about a Ronin, but then, surprise, surprise, after the first few pages, it transforms to the future, and it's like a Samurai Jack-esque book, but not as good as Samurai Jack. Ronin, I was so excited. I wanted Ronin for so long, and I couldn't even finish it. So take that what you will. Frank Miller, why do you do this? Why do you have the best books of all time and the worst books of all time? But, thank you for the dear friend that sent me that. I will finish it someday. I will do my best. Moving on, we have another extremely rare Absolute. In fact, I think one of the rarest because I think they only printed about 3,000, and that's Absolute Danger Girl. Now, what is Danger Girl? It was an excuse to draw sexy women super spies in you think a la Charlie's Angels, in weird situations where they look a little erotic, but they're sexy. In like the first issue, a crocodile bites off her pants and you get to see her underwear. So happy I have that in the Absolute format. Was a gift to my wife. Would she have bought it for me if she knew the content of the book? Probably not. But Danger Girl was the Absolute I thought I was never going to procure. It is one of the hardest to get, and I am happy I finally got across that pervy whale off my list. Now, next up, I have done the Black Dossier, which is the part 2, part 3, kind of a half part in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I threw it back in because I want to show you all 3 of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen absolutes. These are the American Best Comics, where think of it like Avengers, but they're all characters that are in the public domain. So this is Alan Moore. We love him. And I am excited to dig in. It's full of literary references and Alan Moore goodness. I did get a lot of people commenting in my top 10 Alan Moore video, how could you not include League? How could you not include League? And that's because I read like 20 Alan Moore books and I needed an Alan Moore break. So I am excited to dive into those. The Black Dossier is wild. It gives context to the world, but some of its 3D orgies and other of them are clipping of books and just text. Like, I've never flipped through an Absolute with less art. So, I'm going to see if I can find an image of just all the text in this book. But yeah, Black Dossier, definitely, that was the easy one to procure because it doesn't even seem like a real book. I guess he had created it because he didn't want the artist that he was working with to be out of work. So shouts out to Alan Moore for being a good dude. Moving on from that was a book given to me by JP, dear friend of the channel, Absolute Wildcats. This book is sexy Jim Lee art, and this book, I gotta say, but Jim Lee though, which is what you say when the story of an Absolute sucks. Jordan read the first issue of it, or the first volume of it, and said, if this was coming out in single issues, I don't even think Jim Lee's art would have kept me to keep buying it. But yes, there's fold-out pages, there's sexy women, it's 90s to the extreme, so you got people with tons of pouches and tons of muscles, feels almost X-Men-esque in terms of, but like that 90s stuff. And again, why did I buy it? Jim Lee's art. So yeah, I heard that if you want to get a more complete Wildcats, there's the compendium. So, I love a good compendium. Maybe try that when it comes out. Now, last on this section, we have the Absolute Prometheus. Now, for a lot of people, this is their ultimate whale. At one time, it was Omar's ultimate whale. So I'm going to say I have volume 2, I have volume 3, I sort of have volume 1. My volume 1 was listed as brand new on eBay, and I got it, and I haven't had a book this bad since the Absolute Justice. There was library stickers and a torn spine, and it was just heartbreaking. But I did a lot of tender love and care. I bought a hair dryer so I could get the stickers off. And you know what? I read it and it reads fine. So Promethea is Alan Moore writing his love letter to the magic that, not to Magica, the magic that he actually studies and worships and believes in. And the first book, you have Sophie becoming Promethea, a hero from old times. It's another America's Best comic. And it's kind of like an adventure comic. Volume 2, he decides, you know what, let's take it up a notch, and just maps out what he believes the afterlife to be like. So think of it like they go through the different realms of heaven and and it's amazing. It is like every page there's like is just the best art I've ever seen by J.H. Williams III. There's double page spreads, but you can read them in any direction. And volume 3 is his swan song to America's Best comic, where the next stage of human evolution takes place. So unbelievable. You gotta read it. I highly recommend it. Promethea was on my list of my favorite deluxes, and now I get to own the absolutes. And oh my God, each page is just dripped in love and beauty. Now, last and certainly not least, we have the most recent absolute on the list, and that is Absolute Superman by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Now, here's the thing. If I could wave my magic wand and turn this absolute into just a Jeff Johns omnibus, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because we are sorely lacking on Superman Omnis. So some people weren't a fan of this because it just collects the work he did with Gary Frank. So sadly, you're not going to see Last Son, which is a book that I love. But oh my God, the Gary Frank, Jeff Johns stuff is beautiful. So there's 3 main storylines. The first is the Legion of Superheroes. And you know Jeff Johns loves the Legion. And they talk about it, you know, when they're Gary Frank and Jeff Johns Superman is always going to be the Donner film. It's always going to be Christopher Reeve. Now, I said Christopher Reeve because I got a lot of flack last time when I said Christopher Reeves. So shouts out to you in the comment who said, nitpick, it's Christopher Reeve. So every panel is just dripping with love. In that first storyline, you have Clark going with the Legion. And in this storyline, they have changed Superman's story. Instead of him being an alien that brought unity, he was a human and he fought against aliens. So you have someone spreading propaganda, and you have the Legion in hiding, and Superman doesn't have powers because there's a red sun. And it is just a crazy story. I haven't read a lot of Legion of Superhero stuff, but it was awesome. And then you have Superman Brainiac, which was a book that I had not read before, but I've owned the trade paperback for years. A lot of people said it's one of their favorite Superman books. So it's Superman meeting Brainiac again, but this time the real Brainiac. So I do got to give a lot of love to that story. And then again, there was one of his best books of all time, Secret Origin. Now, Secret Origin is on my list of the 10 best Superman comics of all time. And what's crazy is it would even be higher on my list now, because after reading the Legion and after reading Brainiac, and you get that through line that Jeff Johns was cooking, it elevates Secret Origin, a book that I already viewed so highly, even higher. So, you know, we're going to do a giveaway. I got that trade paperback of Superman Brainiac. I don't know why I forgot what book it was for a second. Let's do that again. So you know we got to do a giveaway. Comment down below what your favorite Superman book is, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Superman Brainiac. I'll ship it to you free of charge. Just message us either if you want, I tell you win, either on email or on the Discord, and got to give some love. So thank you, Organic Price Books, for sending this to me. It got me one step closer to every absolute. So for one last time, thank you for coming to this absolute haul. And that's going to bring... No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say the thing that I always say. That's all the time we have for you folks. This video was a lot of fun. I hope I inspired you to check out some of these books or the absolutes when they come back into print. And I just want to say thank you. These hauls have been a lot of fun. And I'm finally at a point where I have every absolute that I need. I only have to wait for a couple to come back into print, and they've all been solicited. So this is awesome. Thank you for all of you who've supported me and Jordan along the way. If you do like this video, you know, come ahead and smash that like button. You know, give us a follow, ring that bell for notifications. You know, we make a lot of comic book content, and we just love sharing the love of comics. Keep reading and stay brave.